So today's panel discussion, we have chosen the topic Listening When the Subaltern Speaks, Literary Publishing from the Margins is a Concerted Feminist Practice. Our speakers for today are editors for two special editions or issues which were published in collaboration with Usawa Literary Review. The first one is Writings by Afghan Women, which was edited by Shikha Lamba. And it goes well with Ananke Lit Festival's topic, Unmasking History, the Hidden Stories of the Global South. Welcome, Shikha, to this panel today. And
Thank you so much.
We have with us founder and curator of the Little Journal of Northeast India, Prarthana Banikya. Hello, Prarthana.
Hi, Sahay.
And managing editor of the Little Journal, Shiron Antony. Welcome, both of you. And our issue, the Northeast special issue, is dedicated to the topic Between Borders, Stories of Migration and Belonging, which is one of the themes of Ananke's festival. So I welcome you all. And we'll begin with some general questions about what makes it special to collaborate in issuing special issues of magazines in independent literary publishing. And we'll discuss editorial labor, which goes in doing these issues, collaborations, and conversations that come out of these issues. So I'd like all of you to briefly introduce yourselves before we start, just a couple of minutes each. Shikha, would you like to go forward?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here. So my name is Shikha Sani Lamba, and I'm from New Delhi, but I've lived in Hong Kong for the last 21 years. I'm a jewelry designer by profession, and also the co-founder and co-editor of an online magazine called Coffee and Conversations. I have been told very strictly that I should be calling myself a poet now. Though I don't have my own collection out, I have gotten published quite widely, and poetry is my natural way of self-expression. So yeah, and thank you so much for having me here. It's just great to be amongst all of you.
Thank you. Prarthana, over to you.
I'm Prarthana Banikya. Like you said, I'm the founder and editor of the Little Journal. I'm based in Bangalore. I'm originally from Assam, and I work as a trainer and a communications specialist in an e-learning design company in Bangalore. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Shiron.
Hey guys, yeah. So yeah, I'm Shiron Antony, and I've been associated with the Little Journal for the last 7 years, I guess. And I really enjoy playing every role I can, for the Little Journal. And I'm from Kerala, Calicut, and I've lived in Bangalore for the last 20 years. And I work for an IT company, and I love literature, I love movies, and I love art of any kind. So I kind of, consider myself a dilettante. And when it comes to art and literature, yeah, I think that's it about me. Nice to be part of this.
And Smita has just texted me because Smita is like a friend, so I forgot to do that. Chief of Usawa Literary Magazine and Matchbox by Usawa. And I'm so glad to be, working for Usawa. And Smita is like the captain of the ship. Smita, please introduce yourself to the team.
Hi, I'm Smita Sahay. I am the founder and editor-in-chief of Usawa Literary Review and Matchbox by Usawa. Usawa completed 8 years in July. Our 15th issue called Refuse just went out. And me and my team of editors have had the pleasure of collaborating over two very special issues with Shikha and Prarthana and Shiron and their team, respectively. And that is the work that we are going to discuss today. Thank you.
Um, so I'll start the discussion with the question, why these issues? So special issues emerge from a particular political, historical, or literary movement or moments. So I'll open the question to all of the speakers. When did you first encounter the idea behind the special issue? And what made you feel that it was necessary? Over to you, Shikha.
Well, the brainchild of our issue was Smita. And I know she'll say, don't give me all the credit, but it actually was her idea. And Smita knows me because I've been a contributor to Usawa. It's one of the magazines that I've enjoyed contributing my poetry to. And I have been involved in fundraising and advocacy work for Afghan women and children specifically for the last 5 years since the Taliban takeover. And one of the things I do try to do is to use every tool in my toolkit because I'm a part of a broader writing community. I've been trying to share, the written works of Afghan women and girls as well, just on my social media. And I think just having known Smita within the writing community, she's obviously observed that. And I still remember just getting a call from her, and she pitched the idea, and it was an immediate yes from my side. And that was actually the summer my daughter was also going off to university, so it was a very exciting summer for me. But I mean, for anybody who's aware of what's happening in Afghanistan, which is gender apartheid, they know, Afghan women and girls are living in this dystopian world that's just been thrust upon them. And one of the things is that they are systematically being silenced in every single way, hidden and silenced. So any opportunity that I can get to get their voices out into the world, because it's not easy for them to navigate, the submission process that all we journals and magazines have, not to mention they're living under the most stressful time of their lives. So I think when Smita pitched the idea to me, it was an absolute yes from my side to put this together. Yeah.
Smita, what was the moment or the kernel that you decided to contact Shikha for this
No,
issue?
so Afghanistan has always been on my mind, right? I mean, it's been on everybody's mind. Ever since the Taliban takeover, we've heard a lot of news coming out of Afghanistan about the kind of lives that the women and girls are being robbed of every day, right? So, because I was constantly aware of Shikha's work, uh, um, because of social media, I thought that we had the opportunity to publish their literary works. And here I want to take a pause and say that this was not a project of documenting testimony or writing a journalistic report. Um, the idea was to make sure that the literature is published, that
Mhm. Mhm.
artistically we carry their work into a broader theme of literary work, a broader body of literary work, and especially the kind of literature that is constituting literature today for us. So I felt that it was a huge gap, that because of the Taliban, this very important literature that was being written, that was being produced there, uh, was not being read. So that was the
Yeah, so
reason.
you basically answered my next question, which was what was the kind of gap that the team of editors were trying to fill in? But I'll just bring in Prarthana and Shiron in the conversation now. So, Little Journal team, how did you conceive the idea for the Northeast special issue, which is the 17th issue, if I'm not wrong, summer of 25? Prarthana?
I think again, my answer is similar to what Shikha just mentioned. It was the brainchild of Smita and team. And I had been following Usawa's work for quite a while, and I was very thrilled that this collaboration could come about. And we started working on it together. But the theme in itself is not something we came up with. It was, the credit goes to Usawa team, Smita, of course.
I'll pose the next question to you. We'll talk more about editorial roles specifically. So what roles do editors bring in conceptualizing themed issues? And how is it different from your general issues, especially when they consider underrepresented and marginalized voices? Is that something that was the main criteria of the special issue?
Who is this question for?
Oh, you.
Okay. All right. There are, we usually at Little Journal, we don't go with themed issues. There were some exceptions with Usawa, and then we also had recently another themed issue, but usually we do a very general issue. The reason being that already the basket of submissions that we get is very small, because our theme is mainly Northeast India, which means that people who have experiences with Northeast India can submit. They don't necessarily have to be from there, but the story or the piece that they're submitting should be in some way connected to the Northeast of India or inspired by it, which narrows it down to such a small basket. So again, on top of that, if we put a themed issue, it becomes even more difficult, because people may or may not have something to say about that particular theme. So usually we don't do themed issue, but then we knew that if we collaborate with Usawa and Little Journal's usual readers, the basket would be much broader and we will get quality submissions. And we went ahead with it. And that also gave us motivation to go with another themed issue, which we did on home and belongingness recently, and we received a very good response. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, sure. Smita, as an editor, what were your initial thoughts about making a Northeast special issue?
So, one is that belonging to the mainland, again, there's a gap, in our literature. And Northeast is, I don't know why, but it is always included as something that needs to be included, whereas, the Little Journal of Northeast India, simply by its name, I felt that, they had placed it in the center. They had placed the Northeast in the center of their editorial, literary, and curatorial work. And that excited me very much. It had come from an attempt where we were trying to do a Manipur issue. We couldn't do it. And then we realized that it was not our place to do a Northeast issue on our own. But to get the people, who know that landscape, who know that literary landscape, and to work with them. So that is how I reached out to the Little Journal of Northeast India. And there also, the theme that we kept was Northeast special. So that, because I wanted to, through that, I and, Kabir Dev was there at that time, and Shivakami ji were there. So we were very clear that we wanted to honor the magazine and their editorial praxis. So we kept it as close to who the Little Journal of Northeast are, and that's how that theme also came about.
So moving from conception of these issues to placing them within the independent publishing backdrop, I'll ask Shikha to tell us something about why independent feminist publishing spaces are so important for publishing these special issues, especially voices of women, in your case, women from Afghanistan.
Well, I think we all are aware of what mainstream media is like now in just about every country. Independent journalism and independent publishing is more crucial now than ever before if you want to actually hear the truth and get the stories from the people directly, not a spun narrative that serves either a political party or a country or,
Mm-hmm.
the narrative of billionaires or whatever it might be. Where Afghanistan is concerned, again, to get the voices of the women being directly impacted. I mean, this was one of the first things I learned that in order to help Afghan women, and this would go for any sect in society, the first thing you have to do is listen. And with independent journalism and independent publishing, you can focus on sharing what they need to say, not what you want to do and what you want to share or what your readers might want to listen to, but rather what do they want to say? What does this population want to convey to the rest of the world? And I mean, just like with Smita gave me an open hand and literally a free hand, which was very much needed for a place like Afghanistan, being run by literally a terrorist organization where girls are writing and hiding and in secrecy. Many don't use their real names, they don't give their photographs. You need somebody who's on the inside who understands a lot of this as well. And mainstream or any other kind of publishing unit that is literally held together by a rigid set of rules where you can't be flexible will never work for such voices. You need people to
Mm-hmm.
come on board and say, let's just make this happen. Let's focus on the people whose voices need to get out and let's do it in the best way possible. And, basically giving due credit where it's due and also doing it in a very thoughtful way. For example, there were
Mm-hmm.
writers who submitted to us who were in between transiting countries. There were refugees who left and were literally in between, moving from one country to another. That meant, there was a gap in our communication. There were girls who would have internet and then not have internet. So you can't be bound by a rigid set of rules when you're dealing with a population like that. And I can't imagine, I mean, being somebody who submits very widely, you often have, journals and magazines that do have this, they have this set of rules. If you submit in this way, your submission won't even be seen. That's like the one line a lot of us get to read, when you're reading submission rules of different journals, and that's fine. They can still have that. But I think independent publishing units like we all have, where the focus is on getting the voices out, are very necessary
Mm-hmm.
right now because no other platform really will be able to do that.
I want to bring Shiron in this thread as the managing editor. Shiron, if you could tell me, as a managing editor, how important independent publishing and or feminist publishing spaces are for journals like Little Journal of Northeast India, and how did collaboration with Usawa help to uh, help in the collaboration of this issue?
Okay. Right. See, I have been a very apolitical person. At least I used to tell myself, hey, I'm apolitical, right? I mean, I would not lean to any political party or ideology or anything. I'll be independent. I'll be like, so neutral. But lately, it's becoming, hard and difficult, more and more difficult for me to be so. I feel terribly guilty when I'm like, okay, I need to just focus on my pleasures, my readings, my movies, whatever. But so having, gotten this chance to play such a kind of very pivotal role, I would say, in with Little Journal, I find it really, really helpful for me to at least, uh, satisfy my ego or myself that, hey, I'm doing something, right? Um, so, so, um, so I consider Little Journal to be like um, uh, a difficult, task. It's not something that I consider as okay. Submissions come in, we edit them, and then we kind of,
Okay.
reject or shortlist or publish. It's more than that. So we bring in a lot of our own self to the editorial process, what we are, what we read, and things like that. And we kind of, a lot of times we have to go by our judgment, right? And so mostly it is Prarthana and me. We are the kind of ones to kind of make the kind of final decision as to what goes out and what don't. So when we were collaborating with Usawa, the whole journey from the beginning till the end was very different. We were collaborating with somebody with a very different approach to editing. So we were like, okay, we have to, meet at a certain point. So the way we collaborated in terms of editing, the kind of things we accepted, the kind of things they accepted and we rejected and things like that were kind of insightful as to kind of how, other literary, bodies work, different than our style of editing and things like that. So it was great, right? The whole experience working with Usawa.
Thank you, Shiron. I remember we used to, but we used to keep going back and forth. We had a couple of joint meetings with editors from this side and editors from that side. We had an Excel sheet where, we had the votes over there. It was a very, very lovely, lovely experience.
Yes. I really, really enjoyed it. Prarthana, you want to say something about the real process?
Yeah, I got nostalgic just hearing both of you talk about it. I remember those Excel sheets, and we would write things like this. I really like this. This is non-negotiable for me. I cannot pass this off. And another person would say, no, this is something that, it really stuck with me. So we all had our personal favorites, and we had our reservations for some, and it was very insightful because we've never done this, and we've not done any other collaborations. To hear another editorial perspective, we learned a lot through that entire process.
Yeah, which was
so did we.
Yeah, and also the view is so starkly different than ours was like eye-opening, right? So one thing I'd like to add as a response to this question is the editorial choices in terms of what gets to the publishing stage and what doesn't. Is a difficult call in terms of the theme and the writing itself, because we also give a lot of weightage for the writing style. And so if we find a piece or any kind, art, photography, anything of that sort, which is carrying a weighty theme, but still if it does not really work well with us as the consumers of those art form, we might tend to lean on to rejecting it. You get what I mean? So that is something that we we really like to kind of maybe discuss, or it's a difficult thing. That's it.
Yeah, it's so lovely to hear these experiences of collaboration. Smita, go ahead. Tell us some more.
I wanted to share something. So one of the stories, I will not name the story or the author, but one of the stories that was submitted for the Northeast Special Issue, I think mostly for its politics, we had rejected collectively, okay? But then, it came under, it was submitted again to us for a completely different theme, and we ran it. So the story was gorgeous, okay? But at that time, like Shiron said, it's such a tightrope we walk. And also, again, something that he has already mentioned, there's so much of ourselves that editors bring in. The editorial desk is sort of, there's so many tiny, tiny battles being fought there. Not only like externally with the other team members or the other editors, but also within ourselves, right? So politics, we all start from being apolitical, and then we see injustices in certain kinds, and then just by wanting to stand up to that injustice, we end up taking some politics. we end up
Mhm.
leaning to one side or another. And so I think, yes, of course, the finesse and craft, the literary craft of the work is very, very important. Um, and then you want to also sort of see what it is saying. How it is saying is fine. And then what it is saying, is it, um, and are these two things sort of complementing each other, making each
Yeah.
other larger than what they would be alone?
Mhm. So I'll just bring the political connotation in the conversation now and welcome Shikha back in. Shikha, I'm very interested in knowing, how do you build trust with contributors when you are working on sensitive or politically significant material, which is like the cornerstone of the Matchbox special of from Afghan Women.
The trust was built over a period of 5 years. I think that's you can't step in just out of the blue or last minute and then kind of wing it. Um, from the time that I did start, my first fundraiser was in August of 2021, and the country fell in August, on August 15th, actually, on our Independence
Yeah,
Day.
yeah.
And from then onwards till now, I mean, a lot happened before that. Because of my fundraisers, because of the advocacy, and because I do, like I said, I tend to use every tool in my toolkit. So I always look at, this is my life, these are my skills, these are my communities. Now, how can I use each of these areas to make a difference in the lives of Afghan women and children right now? Like my small business community, like I said, I'm a jewelry designer. So my small business community in Hong Kong, which is very vast, you have women working from the house, making anything and everything and doing all kinds of jobs. That community came through for me during my first fundraiser. Over 50 women-run businesses contributed. So all of this through the years has built trust. And with the contributors as well, through a lot of the fundraisers that I've done, delivering sanitary aid to underground schools, I got to know one of the teachers. I've donated myself and other people as well that run fundraisers for a lot of these schools, that are teaching girls through underground teaching methods. So I think just through the years, again, knowing people there, even before the Usawa issue, I was in touch with a lot of girls already regarding different things. There are two orphanages I support, and in one of them, the older girl who stays there is old enough where we were on WhatsApp. So with a lot of these people, because of the aid work, I've literally been on WhatsApp with them for the last few years. So building
Mhm.
trust comes from all of that. It doesn't, I mean, I almost sometimes feel like my role as an editor and, putting these issues together and working on the literary side, I absolutely love it. But I think I appreciate it more because I'm also able to make other tangible impacts on the ground there through my aid work. Because I know a girl, if a family needs food and if they're starving, they're not going to be submitting poetry to me. If a girl is undergoing depression and needs mental health, help, she's not going to be submitting an article or something to me. So I think because having covered those areas first, getting to know a lot of the people on the ground, that's how I was able to curate this issue. Otherwise, it would have been an impossible task because of very obvious reasons, girls and women there do not trust easily. They will not trust even women easily unless you really can earn that trust. And it's for security reasons.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, one of the things that they say about the Taliban now is the Taliban 2.0 is smarter with technology. They have people
Yeah.
who go through your social media accounts. Like when I share a lot of my photographs of aid work, I cover faces of women and girls. So there's a lot of security protocol that I have to take even on my social media. I have well over 2,000 people blocked.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
specifically, especially for men, unless I know them, and if it's an Afghan man, unless I know him, I will not let them even follow my accounts. So the trust is built doing all of that before something like this happens, especially
Mhm.
for girls who are in the country right now. Yeah, and I think
Mhm.
because of the aid work and the fundraising, establishing these relationships for almost 5 years, this issue happened. Yeah.
Hmm. So, Smita, the Afghan issue, like Shikha told us, was not just publishing a bunch of articles or poems. It was like a socio-economic collaboration with the contributors. Tell us some of the challenges you faced as an editor sitting in India and
So
trying to conceive this issue.
I wouldn't say socio-economic, I would say socio-political. Okay, I'll tell you why. Um, this is something that Shikha said that still stays with me. When we think of a writer anywhere in the world, we see her sitting at her desk typing on her computer. We take Microsoft Office, Word for granted on our devices, not just computers, even our phones. And these were not available to the girls and women who were sending us work from Afghanistan. So, the first thing we faced was they were unable to navigate through our submission form. They had patchy internet. They didn't have good, internet browsers. So, then some people even said that, we are not able to type it out and send. The best we can do is take photos of our handwritten work and WhatsApp it to Shikha. So then we allowed that. The third thing happened when there is this activist. She's a guerrilla activist in Afghanistan by the name of Nigin. She's an
Hmm.
activist artist. She is constantly on the move because she is on the Taliban hit list. So the best that she could manage was these uh, voice notes that she used to send Shikha, even which wouldn't be complete at one time. I mean, she would just send some sentences, then travel, then send the rest of it. So Shikha actually sat down to transcribe all of this. Then finally, it's just been a tradition that we publish the author's photo, author's name, and their bio note. And like Shikha just mentioned, we couldn't here put the photos out. So, so yeah, these were some of the things. And see, making the changes here wasn't that difficult. Just imagining their reality, that was, that sort of shook us. That shook the entire team. And I remember that after having done this issue, uh, we had a meeting and I requested all of us to take like 3 to 4 days off. Um, because we all had changed as people. Um, yeah, it was. So I think, yeah, that is what I would like to say. Yes.
I just want to jump in
Um,
very quickly to say, in fact, we had selected a date for the launch of the issue, and a few days before that, Afghanistan basically had an internet blockout, which was
Yeah.
already being warned about, and the activists that Smita mentioned again had already started sending me messages that this might happen, and I had students telling me this might happen. When will the issue come out? In case we don't have internet, how will we get to read, see our work? And we actually, crunched hard in the last minute and got new articles and things written regarding the internet blackout, which I think happened for a few days. But we all lost absolute contact with anybody in the country. And we got the issue out before time. With the
Yeah,
new
yeah.
and
material
I
about
remember
the
that.
internet, and it was a time of panic. I mean, I was panicking in Hong Kong because everybody just lost complete contact with anybody in Afghanistan. So yeah, so I mean, one is faced with a lot of challenging. I mean, this we could not have foreseen at all. But one is faced with so many challenging things, when you're working with populations like these, and it really helps to, honestly, hats off to Smita and team. It helps to have collaborators who learn to go with the flow with you and kind of make you panic a little less and work around what's happening. So.
Shikha,
Yeah,
you
I think
also wrote
uh,
about internet ban in the issue.
I did. So I
yes.
wrote a piece literally in a hurry. In fact, one of the things I try not to do now is to have these angry rants on X. But every time it's so tempting to give your point of view on X when people are just talking rubbish. But I did express my concerns and I did express my fear on X, and that actually got seen by a CNN reporter in Australia. I think the fact that I knew people on the ground probably popped up for her. And the issue was mentioned in her CNN article because I managed to get her, a quote from Niggin, the activist, and from another journalist that I knew on the ground. So as the internet opened up, I mean, so many things happened last minute. The CNN thing happened, then all of us writing last minute articles happened, and we launched early to get
We
the issue
did.
out.
Yeah, yeah, I remember we had to work through the nights to bring it out. No, also I wanted to, bring in this idea here of what constitutes for literature, what constitutes for good literature, what constitutes for good publishable literature, right? I think this issue made us all question all of that, and it taught us a lot to listen. What is literature? What kind of forms would come out of these places, like there's this poem by Shire where she says, fuck your craft, my people are dying. And this is not to say that craft isn't important, but then you look more closely at the craft of these pieces because you are so devoted to listening. So I think um, uh, this is another thing that we learned.
So we're talking about literature, and I want to focus on stories of migration and belonging and bring our little journal team in. So in the issue, I have a favorite piece. Prarthana, I'll direct this question to you. It's Deobar by Janvi Gogoi, because it has a footnote with Assamese terms glossary. So I want to know how important this issue or other issues are for regional dialects and making mainstream readers aware of regional dialects from Northeast and regional languages. And I just love the footnotes. Tell us more about this. How did you select this piece and how important uh, it was for the issue?
I think like Shiron was talking about a little while ago, um, pieces that what we call effortless writing, right? With it looks effortless, of course, I'm sure like they put in a lot. So this piece, I still remember unanimously, all of us had liked it. It gave such a strong picture of what an Assamese household looks like or even sounds like, and a
Yes.
pleasant piece. It didn't have a very strong social message behind it. It was a day-to-day kind of
Yes.
ordinary moments in a household, right? And coming back to your question about how important language or dialects and representation is, I think I'd like to go a little back to when we came about or why we came about the Little Journal. We used to see, or I used to see, that there were very few stories from the Northeast that were out. We only saw the Northeast when it was in the news, right? And mostly negative news.
Yeah.
But we don't know what Northeast look like, or what a particular state may look like, or what is their culture like, or what does their typical day look like. How different are they from us, or how similar are they to us? And I felt like all of the stories that we have, such distinct cultures and traditions and languages, lifestyles, all of those things are getting lost because there's no platform to really write about them or read about them. Mainstream media, of course, was not covering any of it, but even magazines per se. I think we have Zuban now, but back in the day, I think they had just maybe come out. I'm not sure. So that was how we came about, because I felt that was not there at all, and I thought it was very important to tell those stories, and not just stories with a social message, but just to say that we are also not very different. I mean, a lot of times Northeast is not even considered a part of India, right? We see that in the news. Floods, this time it was covered, but usually floods in Assam every year that happen, but they're never covered in the news. So I digressed, but I hope I answered your question. Somewhere it's very important, of course, to cover all of these stories, and that's how we came about.
Smita, if you could tell us something about the post-publication responses that Usawa had. Let's start with the Northeast special issue first.
I think one was you mean from the readers, right?
Yes, the
You mean from
impact
the
that
readers?
this issue had. Yeah.
So I can't recall anything as such, but just reading North literature from the northeast of India, all collected in one issue, I believe that it filled a very big lacuna in what Osawa had been publishing. So I'm sure that that meant a lot to our readers as well. I also believe that the readers of the Little Journal of Northeast India and the readers of Usawa both became aware of the new, of the other literary. So our readers became aware of what the Little Journal was doing, and the readers of Little Journal became aware of what we were doing. So yeah, I mean, apart from that, I don't think I can say anything to that question.
Okay. Shiron, as a managing editor, do you have some experiences of responses from readers, contributors, designers? Because this issue has a lot of graphical elements that I
Visual,
absolutely
yes,
love. Yeah.
yes.
So,
Beautiful,
what was the
beautiful work. Yeah.
what was the like post-publication response once the issue was out?
I will defer to Prarthana to answer that question because she's the one who handles most of the social media aspects of Little Journal.
It was the response was much bigger because it's two magazines and coming together. And a Little Journal, of course, readership is still very limited. Usawa is much bigger. So our stories reached a much wider audience and a non-Northeast audience as well, because a lot of our readers are also writers who submit to us. So this was pan-India and outside.
Yeah, so like this helped in generating certain interest for the next issues also.
Definitely, I think so. Most definitely.
Yeah. So is there a piece, Prarthana, this is for you, is there a piece that was difficult to commission or edit and you were like, so go ahead.
It's interesting you ask that because just a while ago I was thinking about, the questions you might ask, and there was one particular piece, I think Smita and Shiron might even remember. There was a person who had submitted poems, and one of the poems we had decided to go ahead with because the style of writing and the way they wrote was very interesting, very unique way of writing. But a lot of the poem did not make sense to us, or as a reader, as a third person, we felt that the readers of the magazine would also not be able to relate or connect to it because it didn't make sense in our heads. Maybe to the poet it did, but for an outsider it didn't. This is where the editorial process comes in. There is only so much that you can recommend, especially in a poem. Essays are different, short stories are different, photo essays are different, but poems are a completely different ballgame. You can't really make that many edits because it's a very personal piece, right? Poems are. So we reached a stage where some of the changes were not accepted by the poet. And we had to finally really decide that is this non-negotiable or is this something we can still go ahead with? And we decided not to because it just did not come together, the poem as a whole. it flowed very well at the beginning, but towards the end, it kind of fell flatter and it didn't make sense. And it's very painful because when you spend so much time with the piece, editing, making recommendations, working collaboratively with a contributor, with the editors, and then you have to give it up. It's painful for everyone, especially for the contributor, I'm sure. But we had to make that decision because it didn't come true.
Shikha, I'll pose the same question. Oh, yeah. Shiron, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I'd like to add something to what Prarthana is saying. See, one of the things that just to add to a couple of other pieces that we've gotten as submissions. One talked about a very important issue of exclusion. Just because you're from the Northeast, you're excluded from certain company and things like that. So that piece talked about it in a very broad sense, but at the same time, it used words and ideas that we personally, as publishers or editors, do not really are appreciative of. So for instance, we are a wannabe vegans, right? We're going to want to be vegans because we want to be as harmless to the world as possible, right? I mean, we do not want to cause any harm because we exist, right? So when we see in pieces words or ideas that handle topics of animals a little callously, that's a big, what is that? Deal breaker? Kind of a deal breaker for us. So that is something, those are situations where we kind of have to sit and choose. Okay, now what kind of, what are we letting go of because of this, right? So we try and work through that piece as much as possible. If, we can, still get the piece published despite our, disagreement with the way the piece is handled. So such pieces go through heavy editing and things like that, and many the writers and authors might not agree with, and it's challenging sometimes. Yeah.
So the question of border and migration, there's a piece by Sumax Irungbaum. Am I pronouncing it correctly? It is about...
That's my favorite piece.
Prarthana?
From the... I should not be saying this, but it is. I think after the...
It is like my second favorite piece from the issue. Yeah. So tell us something. What elements can you highlight for our listeners? Why is it a favorite piece?
I'm sure all of us will have specific reasons. For me, it was again very unpretentious, very effortless writing. If I'm hooked in the first paragraph, and I feel like I really want to read on, and I think about the readers as well. Like, would they also feel the same way? And I really like it when a writer writes without the writing about a social message just for the social message, but just for writing, and the writer portrayed Manipur so vividly for us in that story without really wanting to or showing that, this is how Manipur is, or these are the issues we face every day. Beautifully written. And it's actually a ghost story.
It's like a lived experience, but like without the polemics of political, issues. Yeah. Yes. So that's the beauty. Like, as editors, you must have really given it a thought that we have to choose such articles or essays or stories which go beyond the, mainstream conversation. So lived experiences.
Lived experiences as well as... Sorry, please continue, sir.
No,
I got
Prarthana,
excited.
please complete. No, Prarthana, please go ahead.
I was just saying that, of course, the lived experience, but at the same time, such strong storytelling.
Yeah.
and such strong literary quality of writing. We hardly had to edit that piece. Beautifully written. It's a ghost story, like I was just saying. But through it all, the whole setting of the place, I mean, you have to read it already. No, I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I have. So I'll just bring in Shikha into the conversations. Shikha, is there a piece that you had difficulty in commissioning or editing? Tell us about it.
So many, simply because ideally, to put this issue together, it would be an Afghan woman poet who understands and is fluent in Farsi and English both. I don't speak Farsi. A lot of our submissions were translations from Farsi done by people who are not translators. And as Prarthana said, essays and stories is one thing, but poetry, oh my God. I mean, even as a poet, when my work is edited, but to edit poetry that's been translated from another language. And actually, a while back, an Afghan poet, a young poet, explained this to me. And she said, you might not, because in English, sometimes the sentences can appear almost abrupt. And she wrote back to me saying that actually, when I wrote it in Farsi, the piece flowed really well, and you could get a sense of the music of the piece. And when she said that to me, I said, that's a poet talking. If a poet is talking about how a piece sounds and how it flows, that is a poet talking. But because they're not translators themselves, it's very difficult to get the same emotion, feeling, flow, in English. So I think the first thing that I decided, of course, was not to over edit at all, because if I had to start doing that, I would almost be rewriting some of the pieces, which is definitely not what we wanted to do. The idea was to definitely correct all grammatical errors. And another thing I realized was that in Farsi, I think there is no gender. So he and she becomes, it's the same thing, which initially I had to keep going back. I'm like, are you talking about a woman? Because you've said he here, but it's she here. So there was so much learning there and a lot of back and forth with them. Very recently a poem came where the sentence mentioned a Ferris wheel, but the poem had nothing to do with a Ferris wheel or an amusement park. So I had to keep going back and I said, what do you mean by a Ferris wheel? And actually it was the wheels of fate, but the words are similar. So the process has been very interesting, very, very challenging, but oh my God, I mean, so fulfilling. And even for the writers, I think going back and forth explaining why I had made some edits, first it would, of course, be all the grammatical ones and it would be spelling errors as well. But going back and explaining to them that how about we move this line here, or how about we end with this word to get your message out clearer. I think I focused more on grammar, on spelling, and how can I make this message, keeping its authenticity intact, how can I make the message clear enough for the readers who will be reading, who probably are not Afghan. I'm honestly thinking about trying to learn Farsi now because I've just finished editing a whole nother issue for another magazine, and I don't think this is stopping anytime soon. But yeah, it was challenging, but very, very fulfilling and quite a learning experience for me.
So in the editorial, you mentioned something about using Google Translate
Yes.
during discussions. Tell us something more about it.
So a lot of the contributors were using Google Translate. And I actually even, we would go back and forth and I would say, was this done by a person who understands both English and Farsi, or did you use Google Translate? Very recently, a lot of people, a couple of submitters said that we used AI. And that's when you almost have to, I can't understand the Farsi version, but I look at the AI version and I try to actually see what they actually meant. And that's where we do change a couple of words around because AI does not understand poetry, and I hope it never does understand poetry. So yeah, I mean, it was challenging, but it was using Google Translate actually came in handy. I won't say it wasn't handy. It's very handy, just to a lot of the emails that I received, not just the poems, but just even the text of the emails were in Farsi. And this was something that we allowed because we didn't want to refuse any voice coming out of the country. unless there was a very, very good reason to refuse it. Given the circumstances of women and girls there, if a girl got down to writing a story or a poem, going through what she's going through, and a lot of them are locked up in their homes. I mean, we have to understand these are either college students or these are women who were entrepreneurs and career women who are now locked up in their homes. If they can manage to get a story or a poem out and actually submit it, we wanted to make sure we could do our best to get it out into the world, with minimal edits.
So, like I asked Prarthana about her favorite piece, tell us one or couple of favorite pieces from the. I know it's very difficult to choose, but
It's
still.
very difficult, but I will go back to the little poems I received from the girls at the orphanage, because I know a lot of these girls now for the last 3.5 years, and I really wanted the poems from them. I mean, these are girls that I see their photographs, I get their updates. So, you kind of feel like you know them. And this one poem, I have it written down here because I genuinely can't remember most things now. But it's a 2-line poem, but the first line of it can mean the absolute world. And she was 13 then. And the poem goes, if I were to say where my books have taken me, the men of this age would stone me mercilessly. Where can books take an Afghan woman today or an Afghan girl today? That's what we have to look at. Afghanistan had a robotics team, it had a soccer team, women's team, it had women in parliament. That's where books can take these girls and women. They can take them anywhere, have them do anything, which is why they've banned education for girls above grade 6. So for this girl to imagine, and a lot of our poems are about that, it's about this imagined world, what is not accessible anymore, all the dreams, basically crashing down. And this poem actually makes me cry every time I read it, because I feel the intensity of the loss, where education and where these books could be taking these girls and these women. And if the Taliban or the men there were actually to realize that, which they do, they would literally stone them without mercy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very heavy coming out of a 13-year-old. So
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is dark, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. Smita, I'll ask you this question. How difficult it is to choose between the quality of a piece of literature or the circumstances from which the contributor has arrived, if we know about it,
So,
when
yeah.
editorial decisions
Yeah.
take place.
No, that's a very pertinent question, especially for the Afghan issue. Because I mean, as much as I felt that I knew about their circumstances, I got to know much more about their circumstances after we started working on it. So then it becomes impossible to not be aware of their circumstances while editing, while curating, right? So, like I said, the practice of listening became more and more important. Because through our editorial process, what we were saying is, you don't need to perform for us. You don't need to perform. We are listening. Like something like this, in a very different context, Prarthana also said that when a work feels effortless, it catches our attention. And like in this piece that Shikha just read, the poem, um, you see, it's not even universally, even if you take it out of that context, but you put it in any misogynistic patriarchal setup, and you know that, if somebody has been banned from studying or reading, or books getting banned and things like that. Or for example, recently, when this young woman used abusive words towards our leader, um, a certain kind of punishment uh, will happen. So you see, I think we walked a tightrope wherein, while it became impossible to not remember the circumstances in which they are writing, also how they were affecting us. These pieces, everything that we published, even the short stories, I think except for one or two non-fiction pieces, um, which I wouldn't call weak, but I would call them, repetitive in a certain way, because a lot of that had already been captured by other pieces. Apart from a couple of those pieces, I think everything that we included in the Afghan issue is literature from where I stand, while I am being aware of the circumstances that they have written in, because that literature is a product of those circumstances. And, I want to talk a little bit about, very briefly about, what Gloria Anzaldúa says. She says that the border is a site of creativity and knowledge. Okay. So between languages, identities, geographies, and genres, lot of writing sort of gets lost and remade. Okay, so I think I saw that happening in the Afghan issue. For example, there was one piece of fiction which, because we know of what's happening there, it could also read like a newspaper piece. It could read like a journalistic piece the moment you take out all the names, So yeah, I do not have a straightforward and short answer to your question. So this is my very roundabout way to
Oh,
explain what we were
mhm.
trying to do.
Let's discuss about general problems that independent or feminist platforms face, and how still the mainstream voice is very loud. And I want to ask Prarthana about this. So, what makes you like get up in the morning and still go forth with little journal?
Madness,
Shiron, would you like to
kind
answer
of
this?
affliction, kind of
Yeah.
mental affliction, Shiron.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to answer that question because I don't know. Prarthana, would you like to take that answer? Because
Um,
what are the challenges in as a magazine? I haven't, or as a magazine editor, I have not experienced any tangible, challenges. But yeah,
um, I think, we've been functional since 2009 and not 2009, what am I saying? 2019, right before COVID, the year before COVID is when we began. And I think recency effect maybe, which is why it's easier to forget the kind of challenges we experienced very early on when we had just started. That this is one challenge that I can think of where when you're really small, only your friends and family know you. And I'm not somebody who has a marketing background or publicity background. So we didn't really know how to get the magazine out. So we would have just people we know spread the word and get people to submit work. And what happens then is that the editing process is extensive. I mean, we are extensive now, but back in the day when we got very few submissions, and these were mostly from non-writers, we would have to spend weeks just editing each piece. And the quality, of course, and the editing process became leaner because we started receiving more submissions. So the more people that know you, it's easier to choose from because you have so much selection. But that was one challenge we used to always have, that we have very few submissions and we have to spend a lot of our time. And most of us, we work full-time jobs. We only can work on the journal in the weekend or on holidays. So it used to be very, very strenuous process to, spend so much time with each piece. That's one challenge I can think of right now.
Smita, why do we get up every day and
Because we are knocked in the head, Shakti. Because we are mad. And
what makes us tick?
no, I think, yeah, but seriously, I think because we know how much we are not getting to read. So we know how much we need to produce that literature,
Hmm.
not produce, but publish that literature to make sure that we have that for reading. I think it's a largely selfish work, you know. At the same time, it's selfless in some ways, but I think we know the gaps that exist. We know what makes us angry, and that's why we do what we do. And Shiny, you know it better than me, that one of the major challenges we are facing is funding,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
keeping the team, right? Because as we grow, the team grows, and everybody is not always on the same page. And it creates
Yep.
friction. But then we are not an organization. We don't have an HR, we don't have national holidays, right? So it's a largely unstructured place committed to producing the best possible work that we are capable of. That in itself
Yeah.
is a big struggle.
And
Um,
that's how we are at, yeah, Shiron, you want to
I,
say something?
y- yeah, I just wanted to add to what Smita was saying, right? I mean, that reminded me of some of the challenges that, we also face in the little journal, right? It's mostly run by people who are really interested in the cause.
Yeah.
It's not done for money because there is no money, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, so it's like, so that kind of reminds me of the topic itself, right? I mean, it says feminist. What is the topic? Could you remind me of the title of the topic? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
it's like listening when the subaltern speaks.
but yeah, there
And
was something.
We are,
feminist
Yeah,
knowledge making, yeah.
yeah,
yeah, right. So I'm just thinking, right? I mean, it's just a sisterhood, a brotherhood that is kind
Yeah.
of making it possible. It's like Smita said, why are we doing it? Like, are we Looney Tunes to do it? Is it partly? Yeah, right. Because um,
Yeah.
it's just the joy of doing it, and also, yeah, I think it's the fact that you feel kind of um, are doing some important work because
hmm,
it's necessary that such
hmm, hmm,
entities exist. Mm. So
hmm.
yeah, challenges galore.
I'd love to
Yeah,
add in a
and that,
little bit because, sorry,
yep.
um, the same with Coffee and Conversations. I was having a good laugh because my co-editor and myself, we're both co-founders. Every year when we have to renew our website and all of that, we actually sit and have this meeting that why are we doing what we're doing? Because it's all out of pocket. We are earning absolutely nothing. Initially, we thought, oh, we'll try and get ads, and neither of us have a marketing background. But it's almost impossible to even cut, you know, get your get enough just to run your websites or anything. So it is something I think I know for myself. I love stories, and I wanted to be a certain kind of storyteller, and I like to absorb certain kind of stories. And with Coffee and Conversations, though with Smita, it wasn't my magazine that was in collaboration. It was me, separately. But with Coffee and Conversations, I will say like some of the things that we like to do is we cover a lot of grassroots initiatives and NGOs and basically people doing good work in different parts of India mainly. And like Sharon said, it's something that you feel like you're doing for the world. It's your contribution, some kind of a tangible impact you can have even through your magazine or your literary work out there in the world. I think none of us would be getting up in the morning to do this if we weren't really passionate about our contribution in the world. Why are we doing
Yeah,
this every day? What is it that we are contributing, and why is that valuable? And obviously, all of us believe that what we're doing is valuable, and I believe that it is as well. And I tell Smita this all the time. I will have to apologize to Prarthana and to Shiron. I have to catch up on your journal, which I will, absolutely, starting with this issue. Um, but I tell this to Smita all the time that she and her team, they're doing very important work. Even with the issues that we made, these are testimonies. These issues, these poems, these articles, they're going to survive all of us. They're going to survive all these regimes. They're going to survive all these governments. And these will be testimonies, out there in the world for future generations. So, yeah, I think that's why I get up in the morning. slightly crazy in my head as well.
So I think from my perspective, it's been 6 months since I've joined Usawa. And I think I've seen that even from my experience, I have a background, I was a biochemist. So I know how collaborations are important in labs. And it's the same thing in literature. We cannot exist in a vacuum because vacuum just generates more misinformation. So the more collaborations we have, the more exchange of ideas we have. Like an Afghan reader can read about Northeast India, and a reader from Northeast India can read about an Afghan poet. So the more we collaborate, the more we generate such pieces, and the more we come together in literary festivals like Ananke, however small, however uh, like regional, it doesn't matter. We might not be like sitting right now in the global north audience facing platform, but we are doing something, and that's why we get up in the morning. uh, any final notes, Smita? Because I know we are strapped for time, but we have done wonderfully. One
I
hour
think
15
I
minutes
think I
Yeah.
think I just want to say that, collaboration, I have through these collaborations, I personally, as a human being, have learned a lot. As an editor, yes, as a team member, yes, but also personally, I mean, um, it is it is not very straightforward. We are not taught to collaborate while being aware of differences. We are, all of us are larger, scared of any sort of conflicts. And,
Hmm.
and but in these experiences, I can tell you that, um, it was an experience. Both of these were experiences where I felt like I grew as a human being. I grew a little bit wiser. I grew a little bit more loving. And editorially, I learned a lot from these very, very fine editors who are here. That's all from my end. Thank you.
Prarthana and Shiron, any last final comments?
Yeah.
Sayani, if I may, just one thought, it's not
Yeah,
really a
sure.
conclusion or anything, but something I felt I missed out is um, also when we talk about our relationship with contributors, right? Um, you asked a very important question. Well, like, what gets you to get up in the morning? What's that motivation, right? When you have an inbox full of submissions and you've not looked at it. And I try to take myself to the time back in the day when I had first published my poem, like my very first published poem, and the feeling it gave me and the motivation that it
Yeah.
gives you to write. I wrote so much more after that published poem. It was not a very big magazine, but it meant a lot to me. And I put myself in the shoes of these submitters who, if they get the news that it's going to be published, how would they feel? Also, when we submit to magazines, there are magazines that don't respond in a very, the rejection letters are not very motivating. Most rejection letters are not,
Yeah.
but there are magazines who write very nicely, who take the time to respond and take the time to encourage you. And we want to be that kind of magazine, right? So writing to people whose work may not be submitted, but what we liked in their work, or if you don't have the time to say that,
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
kind, being considerate, so important. I
Yeah.
just thought I should just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So that's the beauty of like indie publishing spaces, that we are so used to form rejections from these big places. Like they'll just write one, unfortunately your work was not selected, and you'll feel like some bot has written the answer, and you'll be like, why did I wake up and wrote this, wasted so many words? And that's how I feel that independent spaces are humanist forward, like humans first, and then like literature and humanism are go together. We can't separate one from the other. And I'm not an editor, but I feel that editorial spaces have that kind of responsibility to maintain this humanist connection in literature. And I value Little Journal and Coffee with Conversations. Sorry, I got mixed up with the words. And Shikha's magazine also. I think Usawa is doing the same thing, that we are human forward, human first. These issues, yeah, these issues show that, they are grounds for social bonding first. And, like an unknown contributor can become friends with the editorial team much later. And that's how we grow. That's how we have come to Ananke together. So I just want to thank all of you for being here today. And it was lovely meeting all of you and talking about publishing and your favorite pieces. I love to hear your thoughts about not just what goes in editing the pieces for final publication, but the relationships that you people made throughout these years. And I wish you all the best for more such collaborations. And I think Usawa is always welcome to collaborate further. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
Sayani, for
Sayani.
moderating as
Thank you,
well.
Shiny.
Yeah. And thanks to Ananke.
Yes, and thank
Thank
you,
you,
Prarthana,
Ananke.
Shiron,
Thanks.
and Shikha on
Yeah,
a
and
weekday for making the time.
thank you, Smita and Sayani, also for giving us an opportunity to meet Shikha and her, the amazing work you guys
Yeah.
are doing. And against your work, it's like ours, like very regular, very
No, no,
challenging
it's not.
work.
It's not.
But
It's
keep it
not.
It's
up.
not,
Honestly, it's not.
it's
Yeah.
not, because there are humans behind both
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
humans, and the humans are equally important. I've always believed that, and I will be stalking you guys now on Instagram, and I will catch up on your work. So yeah,
yeah.
thank
Just
you.
to thank you so much. Just to add, right? I heard the word humanistic, a lot in today's discussion. But I'd like to kind of, uh, really kind of come out of the. I'm trying my best also to write to come out the anthropocentric view of the
Yes.
world. Like,
Yes.
so
Okay.
we kind of, I
Mhm.
guess we are, or we should be, kind of. Should start thinking more of a more inclusive world where we consider part of the world, right? Not just as a superior being, because we aren't superior.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's
Post-human,
another.
kind of
Yeah,
post-human. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah, I
Totally,
mean,
totally with you there. Yes.
yeah,
Beautiful. Yes.
yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you
Thanks so
so
much
much,
again.
everyone.
Yes.
All right.
It was a
Thank you.
pleasure. I was scared of this because this was our very first panel discussion, but I had a really good time. It was so good to hear all of you talk. Thank you so much,
Same here.
Sabine, for
Sabine,
giving us this
thank you.
platform.
We
Thank you
had
so much.
Yeah,
we had
thank you,
such a
Sabine.
fun conversation, all of us. And we
Yeah.
actually got to know each other today through this
Yeah.
conversation.
For the first
We were
time.
we were
Yeah.
freaking out for no reason apparently yesterday. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, but
And
thank
I
you for
really,
making this easy.
and I really had a good time listening to you all.
thank
Thank
you
you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Sabine, for offering the space. Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
keep reading Ananke. All the best.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Lots of love. Shiny,
See you
thanks
again.
again.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.